of Education degree, which was almost finished. And I thought I would share part of the introduction of that thesis with you tonight. So I think it's one of the last things he probably wrote. So he starts with a quote from Tim Rollins. "The art object is the nexus of an ensemble of social relations. It is like the hub of a bicycle wheel with all the spokes having different qualities and principle and natures. The content of a painting is no good unless you carry it into your life." And then one short quote that I think you're all familiar with: "It takes a village to raise a child." In 1989, I moved into a studio in Burlington, Vermont's Old North End, an economically disadvantaged neighborhood. The rent fit my budget and the neighborhood my ambitions. I had long wanted to locate in a working class neighborhood. The reasoning behind this decision was threefold. I would have a place to produce art, do graduate work, and set up workshops for neighborhood kids. Located in an old storefront, the studio had two large picture windows facing the street. Sheets covered the bottom half of both windows so as to provide privacy and control sunlight. The neighborhood had little knowledge about what went on at North Street Studios. One night a week there were life drawing classes, and somehow the local kids had deduced that people posed nude for these sessions. Perhaps they had seen the charcoal drawings pinned up on the wall. Maybe the place seemed to have an especially secured appearance that one night a week when men and women could be observed entering surreptitiously with large drawing pads under their arms. After moving in, I put up a word and image wall installation in the front window. This drew lots of attention, not always favorable. Whenever I worked, I would leave the front door open for the express purpose of allowing people to wander in if they so desired. Many curiosities were piqued by the sight of a grown man building large wall installations using old toys and stuffed animals, which had all been primed and sprayed with fluorescent paints. Kids would come in and ask me what I did there, or if this was a store. I would simply tell them that I made art using junk, and if they wanted to join me, they should get a note from their parents. Some returned, some did not. Eventually, I began collaborating with a rotating group of about 10 children and 2 teenagers. I had known of similar projects. Max Schumann and other local artists had worked with kids and supported their work with small grants. My inspiration came from the memories of my childhood, when as a young boy I would watch my grandfather make jewelry and wooden toys in his workshop. My father also had a workshop, which my brother and I could not use unless he was out of town on a business trip. There I would build models or make the odd thing out of scrap wood. The making of models and art came easy to me and not only gave me self-confidence, but self-esteem. Soon after moving into North Street Studios, I read an article in Flash Art magazine about Tim Rollins and Kids of Survival. An art educator, Tim Rollins had founded the Art and Culture Workshops in 1982 as an after-school program in the South Bronx for artistically talented but learning disabled teenage students from underprivileged backgrounds. That was all a quote. Some of my ideas on collaboration were based on Rollins' work. He would have the kids read a book, such as Stephen Crane's Red Badge of Courage, Kafka's America, etc., and then have them pick out a section which might relate to their lives. They would discuss the readings, and Rollins would have them think about certain ideas which came out of the book. Then studies would be done and hung up on the studio wall, and someone else would get an idea for an image based on the book. This could go on for weeks. Rollins' workshops have been a great success. Many of the kids have been empowered to learn for themselves. In addition, there have been exhibitions of their work and the reception has been good. Some of the kids say it has helped them focus and kept them in school. Says Tim Rollins, instead of constantly training kids to become artists, why not take on the job of encouraging them to be artists now? Tim Rollins would like to open an independent school modeled on Plato's Academy with an art-based curriculum that might become a national model. Its perspective would be multicultural so that the learning would spring from real dialogue. I share his vision, and to that end, I designed a model art center, which is the subject of this paper. I embrace many of Rollins' ideas as well as those of Harvard's Project CoArts. Museum programs do exist in Burlington, but appear to be attended by the children of middle and upper middle class families. Evening classes do exist for adults who are anxious to study representational art or impressionism. Still, programs where youth may create non-traditional art in a non-traditional setting are underserved, have poor facilities, are understaffed, underfunded, have a limited curriculum, or are of a temporary nature. These include the good works of the King Street Youth Center, Barnes Elementary, Sarah Holbrook, Spectrum, Baird Center, YMCA, Shelburne Craft Center, the Wheeler School, the Vermont Council on the Arts, the Craft Center, etc. Be that as it may, there are some encouraging responses and developing models. Burlington, Vermont's Community and Economic Development Office received a large HUD Enterprise Community Grant and is developing, among other things, the Movable Arts Academy. Both are slated for the Old North End, an economically disadvantaged community. This suggests to me that ongoing non-school art programs, a small community art center, or perhaps a citywide independent art school could be an important component and adjunct to Burlington's other art programs. An important thought to keep in mind was a statement I read from the original proposal of Hartford Artists Collective. It is important that ways are found to involve and stimulate our youngsters who have been clicked off by traditional institutions. We cannot overlook them. My own experience has been rewarding. In 1991, after working with kids from the Old North End for about a year, I received a $400 grant from the Mayor's Art Council for the Kids and Culture Workshop, a summer art project I developed for the North End neighborhood. That fall, we were given the opportunity to mount an exhibition at the Francis Coburn Art Gallery at the University of Vermont. The kids who worked with me actually helped me create the final artworks. We shared the responsibility of much of the painting as well as the assemblage of the wall installation's individual units. In addition, some of the kids came up with their own ideas, which I helped bring to fruition. We do a lot of collaboration, but there were some pieces created on an individual basis. Some of the older students taught the younger ones, which took pressure off me, although I did have someone assisting, Michael B., a gentleman who has worked in neighborhood youth programs in the past. Because the groups were usually no bigger than 3 or 4, each of us got plenty of attention. All of us enjoy experimenting, making decisions, and seeing the results. My approach in learning is learning by doing, for, says one dance instructor. In the experience of art, one encounters a sense of personhood and respect for self and others. One can lay claim to who they are in a small and personal way. In many ways, my kids and culture workshops do this as well as serving as a refuge for some of these kids. I saw myself as merely the conductor, guide, or facilitator. I bought the materials or salvaged them, set out the guidelines for projects we were working on, and helped design individual projects. I was rarely judgmental. I do make suggestions for how someone will know what choices are possible when no alternatives are offered. Once the artist knows the process and the variety of materials which are available, all creativity is intuitive. It is important to understand that cooperation and collaboration are the key to much of the dynamics. Most involvement is self-directed. The individual is encouraged to explore and question his or her own personal relationship to and conception of art through active and direct involvement in the creative process. I find that things go more smoothly when I function as the catalyst in this ultimately human process of expanding self-awareness in the making of art. Okay. It is important to understand that I introduce my apprentices to other cultures and periods beside Western. I have a more holistic, world-centered view of humankind, which puts into perspective such issues as racism, sexism, class,